Hello, and welcome to Lesson 3 of DeTech Theory's Introduction to Computer Science course. My name is Vasundhara Bakshi, and today we will be learning about operators. So what exactly are operators? Operators are special symbols that perform operation on operands and return a result that is then used as a part of your code. There are 4 main kinds of operators: arithmetic, comparison, assignment, logical. And you can see examples of all of these above here. We will be going into them in more detail in the coming slides. When we consider the number of operands, there are 3 main kinds of operators. Operands are the number of data objects the operation is performed on or with. Unary operators, for example, act on one operand, which include the plus plus or the minus minus, which is the increment or the decrement operators. Binary operators are ones that act on 2 operands, like the equal sign or the greater than or the lesser than symbols. And then we go on to ternary operators. These are operators that act on 3 operands. When we take an example, we can say that if you consider 4 is greater than 3. If we're over here, the greater than operator is being used on the numbers 3 and 4, which is 2 different operands. Hence, it is known as a binary operator. Then we go on to arithmetic operators here. Arithmetic operators are basic arithmetic functions that we're all familiar with from our elementary math classes. The syntax of getting a remainder is the % symbol, and the multiplication symbol is represented by an asterisk. In addition to those, we have the increment and the decrement operators. They increase and decrease the value of a certain variable by 1. In both cases, they can be prefix or postfix. Prefix means that the value gets incremented or decremented before another operation on it is performed, and postfix means that the value gets incremented or decremented after. When you just see the statement x plus plus without anything else, it means that the value of the variable x has just been increased by 1. Feel free to take a look at all the operators on the screen right here for a second. Now we go on to comparison operators. Now, comparison operators always result in a Boolean value that is true or false. They're used to compare 2 variables and check if a certain condition is true. If we consider our first example here, it checks whether the value of x is greater than y. If this is true, then the result is true, and a certain block of code is executed as a result. These operators are integral to your code's decision-making process. Example, when you look at if 5 is greater than 6, we know that this is not true, hence the result will be false. Now we go on to assignment operators. These are used to assign a certain value to a variable, hence the name assignment operators. The simple equal sign is actually not to check equality, but to assign a value to a variable. These functions are listed on the screen here, but we will go over them one by one. If you consider the example on the screen right here, x equals y, we can say that it would mean that the variable x will now contain the value stored in y. When we look at plus equals, this means that the variable x will now contain the value of x plus y. And then we go on to minus equals. Minus equals means that the variable x will now contain the value of x minus y. In the same way, asterisk equals, which is multiplied equal, means that the value of x will now be x equals x times y. And then we go on to x slash equals, which means x equals to x divided by y. And finally, we go on to x % symbol equals to y, which means that x equals to x modulus y, which essentially means that it stores the remainder of x divided by y. The modulus symbol means that it stores the remainder. Now we go on to logical operators. These logical operators are used to compare the results of 2 statements and determine their logic. In the examples above, we've shown the statements as x and y. However, these themselves can be separate comparison statements or simply Boolean variables. The AND operator returns true If and only if both statements are true, the OR operator returns true when either of the two statements being compared is true. But the NOT operator, it's a little different. It simply reverses the result of a given statement. For our purposes, let's say x equals to true and y equals to false. Here, x and y return false overall because the conditions of both statements aren't true. But the x or y would return true because one of them is true. To understand the NOT operator, let's consider m equals 5 and n equals 9. We know that 5 is less than 9, so 5 less than 9 would equal true. But if you place a NOT operator in front of it, the results would be reversed and you would end up with false. Now we go on to order of precedence. Java has some predefined rules for the order in which operators are evaluated in a certain expression. This is done in order to eliminate any ambiguity or confusion. In a statement with multiple operators, the first one is always the one with the highest precedence. Example, multiplication has a higher precedence than addition, which has the same precedence as subtraction. Now, what does this actually mean? This means that multiplication always happens first, and between addition and subtraction, whichever comes first going left to right in a line of code, that is done first. The chart shows us the order in which the precedence of the operators in Java are determined. The biggest and the most useful takeaway from this are that multiplication and division and modulus operator are on the same level, but all of them are higher than addition and subtraction, which are both on the same level. In the logical operator, the sequence is not, and or. This is very important. And finally, the assignment operator has the least precedence, which means that all the operations are always performed before assigning that value to a certain variable. On this slide here, we have 8 examples of using operators. For the purposes of this exercise, we will consider the initial values of the int variable x to be 7 and the Boolean variable y to be false. Feel free to pause the video right here and work these out on your own, as we will be going over the answers next. Okay, so the first question says x plus plus, which essentially means incrementing the value of x by 1. Since the original value of x is 7, the answer to this question is going to be 7 plus 1, 8. There you go. Now, the next question we have x plus equals to 2, which essentially means x equals to x plus 2, that is x equals to 7 plus 2, which equals 9. In the third question, we have if x is greater than or equal to 6. And we know these logical operators always result in a Boolean value. We can say that as 7 is greater than 6, this will result in true. There we go. Then we have x equals true, which checks if false, that is y equals true. And now we know that is not true, so your ultimate result is going to be false. Now we have x and true, which checks if y equals true, and it checks if true equals true. And if both of these are true, it will return true as a whole. However, in this case, the first condition is false, and since it automatically makes this entire condition false, it's not going to check the second condition. This not checking the second condition if the first one is false in an AND statement, it actually has a special name. It's called short circuit evaluation. Then we go into y or true. This checks whether y equals true or if true equals true. In this case, the first condition is false, but we do check the second condition here because only one of these conditions has to be true for the entire statement to return true. And now we go on to the next one. We see that true equals true. So the statement will actually return true. Okay, there we go. Now we have both of them. Then we go on to x multiplied equals 3, which essentially means x equals x times 3. So if you look at x here, it's 7, so x equals 7 times 3, which is 21. Finally, we have a slightly harder one. The way we approach this is that first we disregard the not operator and focus on the rest. In this case, we check if y not equal to true is true. Since y is false and false is not equal to true, we end up with true overall. And then we go on to check the next condition, whether x is greater than 8, which we know is not true as x is equal to 7. So in this case, we have true and false, which ultimately results in false. However, we cannot forget our not operator over here. So the not operator reverses the result. So if you reverse false, you end up with true.
Thank you for joining us in today's lesson. I hope you guys enjoyed and learned something. If you have any questions, comments, or any feedback at all, please contact us at detechtheoryco@gmail.com and visit our website, detechtheory.com. If you have Instagram or are willing to use it, we also have a page called at DeTech Theory. Well, that was it for today. Please remember to like and subscribe to our channel, as well as watch the rest of the videos that we have in this series and more. Thank you and happy coding!